Welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. Here we'll talk to the leaders in technology, culture, business, and the arts. We'll cover politics, advocacy, motherhood, writing, mental health, and mostly we'll focus on hope. Join Kim B. Davis, author, playwright, radio personality, event consultant, professional speaker on the Kim B. Davis Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Kim B. Davis Show. I'm your host, Kim B. Davis, and this evening it is my pleasure to bring to you one of my favorite romance authors. Her name is Camille St. Mississippi. You are in for a treat tonight. So if you have been starving for romance, tonight is where you need to be. So we are saying more romance, please. Good evening, Camille. How are you?
Good evening, Kimberly. How are you? And I am well.
That is wonderful. I am as well. I was so excited to talk to you. So let's get to it. Tell us, because you have so much going on. You have this incredible series called the R Series. What's the R Series?
The R Series is a 9-part series. It's a story of a woman named Roxanne. The story is centered and located in Sacramento, California. Roxanne is a voluptuous woman of color who owns a thriving Lexus car dealership. There are 30 different characters woven in and out of the story, and there is a comedic and an erotic thread that runs through the complete series. And if by chance violence, vulgarity, and naughty language offends you, these are not the stories for you. She has all the trappings of life. She has the husband, the sibling, the grandparents, the lovers, the chaos and the drama. She has all the trappings that will just capture your attention and intrigue you.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have a Dessert Novella podcast. Tell us about that. But we're going to talk about that later, but just give us a brief intro into that.
I write naughty little stories, racy, adventurous, and naughty little stories, and I title them after desserts because you don't get the whole story. You just get the story where it gets good, right in the heart of the encounter or the exchange. You step into the world with the character, and everything that she talks and speaks about likens itself to a dessert or a drink, a naughty encounter. So I call them Dessert Novellas, and I do a monthly podcast, and they are very racy. They will inspire some naughty and delicious thoughts.
And one of the titles, I'm just going to throw it out, was cornbread. And I was howling because I was like, oh my goodness, she took cornbread. Oh.
It's titled Sexy Ass Cornbread - Almost Cake, because the gentleman in the story is delicious looking. He's thick and all consuming like cornbread, but the things that he did to the lady was sweet. And he reminded her of cake.
Oh, wow. To see that's some good use of.
That's some good eating.
That is good eating. And
that's some good eating.
And people can read into that all they want to, but yes, that is some good eating.
Yeah. Because the character likens herself to a big bowl of greens.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. And he's the cornbread that's going to devour the greens.
Oh,
he's going to sop her up.
There you go. Go ahead now. Go ahead.
You know that good old fashioned eating, where you don't even use a utensil.
Yes.
You use your. I'm from the South, so you use your hands. When it's really good, you just use your hands and you just usher it to your mouth, and it's nothing but deliciousness.
And I've seen people do that with cornbread, literally.
Yes.
They take a piece of cornbread, eat their greens, and I'm like, they're not using a fork or a spoon or anything. And I'm going, Wow, that must be some good eating.
That's some good eating. That's good living right there. If you can put the food in your mouth and dine on it properly without using a utensil, you, my friend, have mastered the art of eating cornbread.
Now you're gonna get me in trouble.
Yes.
So I want to ask you this question because romance is
Mhm.
one of the top selling genre. I believe it's the top selling genre. It's
Yes.
literary. And
Mhm.
so when we look at books, we can go to the grocery store or the aisle, the end cap, and we can see all types of romance books. What is it for you that inspired you to write romance? And what is the drive for you? And that's actually two separate questions. It might sound the same. What inspired you? And then what continues that drive for you?
Well, what inspired me is I have found that I've been writing for 12 plus years. I have found that a lot of women of color, they have not tapped into certain aspects in the romance arena because sometimes that aspect of their life escapes them.
Mhm.
They got into a situation, they've got kids, they've got to make a living. And I've had several thought-provoking conversations with women about what's romance to you. And they were struggling to give me an answer. So as I sat down to write, I was like, well, like the next lady, the next woman, I would like to encounter heart-stopping romance, but that's something that's challenging. So I decided to sit down and write a story of a woman who wasn't looking for romance. She was already married. She had settled into her life. She had all the trappings, and she was in love with her husband. And then when she found out that he had spun a spider's web of deceit for her, it sort of troubled her and caused it activated an aspect of her that he had never seen. Once you become so upset, you're a different person. And the thing that inspires me is it reads true. These are not far-fetched romance. It's no dismissing the Harlequin romance and the love and the fairy tales, because I write fairy tales too. But this is just a real life story. And the woman happened to stumble across love. And she stumbled across romance. She was like, I don't have time for this. I'm married. But when it presented itself, it was like, made her an offer she couldn't refuse. So that's what inspired me. And it inspired me so much that I couldn't stop. I was going to just write one story, be considered a one-hit wonder, to say I did it because I've done an assortment of things. But the one story, I entertained killing the character, but a friend of mine got very upset with me. And she said, you don't kill the heroine off. Have you lost your mind? So I just went into book number 2, and book number 2 went to book number 3. And then I ended up with 9 books. And they have been the most fun I've ever had, because after I found the character's voice, because I was struggling with that, because there's a lot of vulgarity and sex in the book. And some days I curse like a sailor. But then there are days I'm enlightened and I'm inspired and I'm, thoughtful. But then there are days I'm gutter bound. So my character possesses that trait that I possess. And I gave it to her willingly. And it has been liberating to see my character come to life, because it was like I birthed her. She was my first baby. I birthed her. She came to life and she has her own personality, opinion, family, even though there are things that I built for her. The erotic architect that lives in me, I built a world for my character to thrive. And I gave her some of the trappings of everyday life that a lot of women can identify with. It's not an urban romance, it's a romance. Because there's a multicultural assortment of people woven in and out of her story. She just happens to be a beautiful woman of color who's rich, but all of the chaos in her life does not escape her just because she's well-to-do.
Mhm, mhm. And I love the fact that you write that way. Oftentimes I have conversations with people who will say, Kim, your character, she swears. I said, people swear. Well, I don't. I said, you don't, but there are other people that do. And I think sometimes we have to be true to the characters that we create. And oftentimes characters will tell you not. And so for those that are listening, we don't mean in a crazy way, like we actually see them and hear them. We do, but not in the way that you are thinking. Your character is like, I don't talk like that. I'm not going to use proper speech all the time. Sometimes I'm going to be gutter with it, and it's just how I am. And I'm still well to do, a lawyer, doctor, whatever it is. And I think it's important because oftentimes we see real people in life that do that, that challenge our perception of whatever it is, that they challenge. And it's important to showcase that. So I think it's important. So I'm glad that you do that.
I do, as do I. I struggled with the vulgar language for a moment. I struggled for a year, actually, because my father's a minister and I had no desire to offend him or the church. But the reality is, I learned how to curse from my parents. That's just the truth. And I don't curse all the time, but when I am inspired, oh, it's a marathon then. And I decided to give that to my character Roxanne because, if you ever would meet her in the physical sense, you'd be standing there talking with me if you ever met Roxanne. But I gave her something that was real for me that I struggled with. And the fact that she's well-to-do, she's well-spoken, but there are days when she gets so angry, words just spew out of her mouth. That's where the third title of the book came from, because she was upset with somebody and they were talking to her like she worked for them. And she said, you're talking to me like I ain't got no business. That's the title of the third book. I ain't got no business. Just so we clear, whose name is it out there on the marquee?
Mhm.
Whose dealership is this? This is mine. So don't talk to me as if I'm some servant to you. You work for me.
Mhm.
So that's where it came from. And that's where the vulgar language sometimes shows up. So I make people aware that it's a very colorful book. And there's a lot of sex sometimes in some scenes. There's a lot of sex because it was so funny. I was just gonna make reference to the sex. I wasn't gonna tell you the details. But when I buy a book, I like reading detail.
Mhm.
I like knowing what's going on. I am a detail-oriented person, so therefore I give you the lay of the land. I'm telling you the landscape of what's going on, who said what's happened, and how they came together, and the merger is about to take place. Mergers and acquisitions.
Oh, I love it. So I want to go back to something that you said earlier, which I thought was key. You said a lot of women become busy with life and
Mhm.
responsibilities, and they don't have romance. And it's March, it's Women's Month. And so, this month for me has been celebrating everything about women. And being in a pandemic, as we still are, thankfully, hopefully, we're coming out of it. I know we still have a ways to go. But one of the things that has been a key um, thought in my brain that I've heard statistically, women are struggling because they're taking care of kids. They're taking care of their spouses. They're taking care of family members. They're managing virtual school. Many are working from home now for whoever. And they're balancing all the things that go on at home because now mom is at home or, Mary is at home. So, Mary, can you go get me this? I'm in a meeting. Oh, but you're right there. No, I'm in a meeting. You can go get your own coffee or go fix your own food. Mom, can you see I'm in a meeting? And so women are shouldering so many more responsibilities. And this isn't to say that men aren't, but women statistically across the board have been saying that they are. And we know that when women become stressed, what's the first thing that falls off? Romance. And
Yes.
so whether you have a partner or a boyfriend or a spouse or whatever it is, you probably are lacking in that area. So I think it's good that you write that. Hopefully you are able to increase your audience. How has your audience responded to you during the pandemic?
I've done a lot better since I actively, every other day, I post something from Roxanne, what's going on in the world of Roxanne. All last year, I did a chapter summary of all of the events that are going on. And it's been a struggle for all of us. It's been a struggle to make the time because sometimes we are the peacekeepers in our house and we are the consummate jugglers. There is always something that you're in the process of trying to maneuver and manipulate, no matter what's going on with you and how you feel. And the last thing sometimes a woman will think of is romance. She's like, listen, I am done. It's been one of those days and I am done. Please don't even look at me sideways. I'm done. And I like bringing it to the forefront because it challenges people to know that women, I can only speak for me. My mind sometimes slips into the gutter, because I think of some of the things that I'd rather be doing than cooking dinner, going to the grocery store. My kids are grown. Thank God for that. I don't know if I could handle the fact of them being home. But my mind slips into the gutter and I start giving tours. So when I sit down and I write, my mind is already primed and ready to go. So I'm going to tell you what I would like to encounter, what I would like to experience and what I would enjoy for someone to say to me, to the character. But we juggle so much, sometimes we get caught off guard.
So I want to ask you, what is your favorite part of the storytelling process?
The dreaming. The dreaming, oh my stars, the dreaming of it up. Because if you can dream it, you can see it. I dream my books in living color and they materialize in front of me. I know what each and every character would say or do, how they would respond, how they would act, and just birthing them out into the universe. It was just awe-inspiring. I never gave thought to being a writer. It never presented itself to me, but my mom, who was my first storyteller, kept inspiring me to do it. And I was like, I didn't go to school for that. I went to school for marketing, design, fashion. I did all of that stuff. I was working in retail, but I'm not a storyteller. And I didn't even like my own voice, the written version of my voice, and hearing myself speak in recordings. It challenged me because I don't know what I thought I sounded like. It's just I didn't like it. But I've been practicing on myself. And I have gotten to a point sometimes that I can just daydream of scenes from my story that present themselves to me. And they make me smile because I am proud of what I do. I love it.
That is fantastic. And it's true. The dreaming part is interesting because I love when I come up with what I call ideas and I write
Uh-huh.
I'll have a dream and I'll wake up and I'll see a whole story. Or sometimes I'll go someplace and I'll hear part of a conversation, to be someone's voice, someone singing, the tempo of their voice,
Yes.
somebody have on an outfit, I will smell anything can
Yes.
ignite
Inspire you.
that. Mhm. And I tell people, I said, when I can hear the music from the story and people laugh, they say, "You hear music?" I said, "I sure do." I said, "Because
Yes.
I see stories like movies." And I said, "I will hear my characters' voices. And when I see the beginning and the end, I have a story because I
Yes.
know how it's supposed to start and it's how it's supposed to end." I said, "I don't know all the details in the middle." I said, "But I know enough of it that I can figure it out. I can outline it, and the character usually will start talking to me. And it will plot itself out. It makes it very."
Yes. Yes.
So I want to go back to something you just said. You didn't like your own voice.
No.
So I know you said initially you wanted to write because you wanted to be able to present something for people to have a romantic encounter. Was there
Yes.
someone that pushed you to write your first story, or was that your mom?
No, my mom, she told me that I was a storyteller because she was basically an orator. And I was like, "Eh." I dismissed her telling me that because, I guess things show up for each soul when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't ready. I had to have a lot of more life experiences behind me. But I used to work at Macy's, and this this friend of mine who worked for Chanel would come to the store, and she would come monthly, and she would always say, "Let's go do lunch." And I was like, "Why?" She said, "Because you tell the best stories. I want to hear what's going on in your life." And she gave me my first journal. She
Oh,
said, "You should start journaling this." She would call me. Uh, she would put a Miss in front of my name. She said, "Because you are a true Southern lady. So, Miss Camille, you need to write." And I was like, "Girl, I'm not a writer. I didn't go to school for that." But when she gave me my first journal, and I moved out here I relocated from California to Michigan, I sat down and I started writing in that book. And I was like, "I don't know what she's talking about. I don't have anything to say." And that whole analogy of not having anything to say went to like 85, 90 pages of just writing. And I guess I was laying the foundation for my character to be birthed. I was getting the seeding together. I was preparing the foundation and getting everything. I was nesting. That's basically what I was doing. I was nesting. And the friend of mine, whose name is Laura Petrie, told me to write. I know, I'm Dick Van Dyke. Yeah, Laura Petrie, she told me to write. And when I actually sat down to do it, I was afraid because coming from a world of beauty, I was nursing a lot of insecurities. And I was thinking that nobody really wanted to hear what I had to say. But I wrote just a little, just a little small sampling. And I gave it to a friend that I had met out here. And she said, "Where did you learn to write like that?" I was like, "Oh, that's just how I think." I said, "I just wanted to know, what did you think?" And she said, "Oh, she said, keep writing." My friend Tazanne, she would constantly say, "Keep writing, keep writing." And I had asked her and 7 other ladies to let's start a writing group and let's write a story together. I said, "I'll start it off and then I'll keep it for a month. I'll hand it to you, and it'll just go around, and everybody will offer up something to whatever has been written before." It didn't work out well. And maybe I did not voice it properly because I didn't know my own mind then. I guess the Lord had to set me aside by myself and he removed all of the roadblocks and all of the chaos and the drama that was in my life. And it was just a God and Gail venture, just us. So after I found my voice, I didn't want to offend anyone of the things that I think, but to thy own self be true.
Amen.
So I started saying, hey, you know what? This is what I would say. If certain situations present themselves, you better be, and I would tell my characters would say in the story, you better be mindful. Don't make her mad, because she's a monster to deal with once she's been activated. But it takes so much to get there. But by the time my character gets there and she throws the door open, a lot of people can't handle the monster that she can be. So, she's always smiling and have a song in her head. She's always singing rock tunes. She loves rock and roll. And so rock and music, all manners of music is woven inside of each and every story.
Wow. Okay, so tell me what your favorite book that you've written is and why.
I wrote a dessert novella titled The Samurai and the Geisha. And these two forces met one another on the riverbank. She was sitting in a swing, singing, and he was watching her. He came over to talk to her. Here they are. They both work for the king. They operate and thrive inside of the royal court, but they've never met one another. And he told her that he has often seen her, but he was afraid or shy to step up. And he said, could you do me a favor and step across the riverbank with me and let's sit down on the bench and talk? And she said to him, sir, I don't know you to go with you. And he said, well, you're going to have to trust somebody. She said, I don't know you to trust you. And he said, if I would actually take my heart out of my body and balance it on the end of my sword and give it to you, would you trust me then?
Oh, wow.
And she was like, yes. And I was like, when that came up, when that happened, it was like lightning bolts that showed up in my mind. I was like, oh, that's deep. So I had to write it down. And I was like, the samurai and the geisha. And I called the section of the story that they are in, I call it Red Velvet Cake. Because he's dressed in a cape, he has a samurai cape on, and it's lined with velvet. And she's dressed in a red geisha outfit. And they sit down and have a nice conversation that turns into some delicious and naughty sex. But there is an encounter between these two spirits. And I fell in love inside that story. Do you know what I mean? I fell in love with those two characters. I was like, the geisha and the samurai, he does not have a name, and she does not have a name. It's just the geisha and the samurai. And they just met one another. He was fascinated with her. She told him she could teach him some skills because she's entertained a lot of the kings and the courts. She's entertained a lot of them, and she said that they show off their skills. And he said, well, a lady never shows me how to operate my sword. And then she said to him, maybe a lady should show you how to operate your sword.
All right.
Hello. Come on now. Come on now. Don't be playing. Don't be playing. So,
wow.
That's my favorite out of all the stories. I've written 75 dessert novellas. That's my favorite one. It always goes to the front of the line for me.
That is fantastic. All right, Camille, you got to tell us about all the things that you have. First off, where can we find you on social media? Where can we find your books? how can we listen to your podcast? And then I know you are involved in this coffee thing. You got to talk about that too.
I am a partner at this Black-owned coffee company in Detroit called Ooey Coffee. If you are a fan or a friend of mine, you see my post because I post all the time for Ooey Coffee. It's a organic coffee. It's grown in Colombia and South Africa. We pay a prevailing living wage for all the farmers that grow Ooey Coffee. It's natural and organic, and we will deliver it. Amazon will bring your coffee to you, or postal services, because we do both. And it's been, I just wanted to buy some of the coffee, but once I sampled it, it's 6 different flavors. Once I sampled the coffee, I decided I wanted to be part of the team. And I'm gonna give you a little news flash, caveat. Out of the 6 different coffees of Ooey Coffee, I turned around and I wrote 6 different fairy tales for each flavor of coffee.
Oh, wow.
And it's called Coffee Fairy Tales Table for Two. It'll be coming out this year, but they're all romance of the coffee. The coffee steps up and it introduces itself to you and says, this is who I am. This is what I do. These are some of the properties that I possess, but this is the human version of me. So let me tell you what's going on. Coffee Fairy Tales. So, from Ooey Coffee. You can contact me on Facebook. I have a Camille St. Charles, Mississippi page. I am on Instagram on Camille St. Charles. And I'll send you all my information so you can post it on your website. And my books are on Amazon and Kindle and all of those other places, Barnes and Nobles, the iBook store. And I have my own personal website. My books have their own website, and they are called therseries.com. The R is for Roxanne, therseries.com. And you can just go there. You can read an excerpt from each book. You get to see me, you get to find out some of the things that I do and I possess, and you get to encounter my character, Roxanne. You get to see what she looks like and some of the things that concern her or that make her smile, because she is a joy in most people's lives, but she is a marvel and a monster. It just depends on which door you choose to open. So.
Wow. Thank you, Camille St. Charles, Mississippi, for being on the Kim B. Davis Show. This was an amazing conversation. When we met, I enjoyed listening to you and thought.
Was that like 3 or 4? That was 4 years ago.
Yeah, it was. If not, it feels like it was longer than that. But yeah, and I remember listening to you thinking, I want to be like that when I grow up, when I write my romance novels. I don't write like that. I don't have that kind of imagination.
Well, I told you, I slip into the gutter sometimes. And slipping in the darkness. I was like, ooh, sometimes I get so, I fascinate myself with how my mind works. So yeah, I welcome all of the new listeners, and I can send you all the information for my podcast link so everyone can go there and encounter. Just pick a dessert, press the button, and I will tell you a naughty little story about each dessert.
Yes, you will. Thank you again. I so appreciate you. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Kim B. Davis Show. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok under Kimberly Batchelor Davis. Bachelor is spelled Batchelor. Davis, there is no hyphen. You can go to my website at kimbdavis.com. You can also view this show on youtube.com. So use youtube.com/Kimberly Batchelor Davis. You can also find us on Apple, Spotify, Google, and Stitcher. Thank you again for tuning in. And as always, remember, be magnificent.
Thank you, Kim.